Hi, everyone. Just get everyone into the room and joined.
Hello.
Got people just joining. Hey, afternoon, everyone. Just for those joining, you won't be able to speak to us and we won't be able to see you on the screen. But if you have any questions or comments, there's a comments section, which I'll just say hello in. And if you have any questions or issues, just drop us a message in the chat. So still a couple of minutes early. We've got just about 25 people joined. So we had over 100 people accept. So we'll give it a couple of minutes, but we'll aim to start bang on past if people want to grab a glass of water or a cup of tea or anything. So for those of you who are just joining, I'll just mention it again. We won't be able to hear you, or you won't be able to speak on the stream, but there's a comment section. So if anyone has any questions or wants to raise any questions, or as we ask you for participation throughout the session, if you just want to put things in there. Hey, Steve. Hopefully everyone can hear the audio okay, can see the slides on the screen. We'll maybe just give it another couple of minutes for people to join, and then we'll get going. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just waiting for some more people to join. We'll probably get going in a couple of minutes because we're still a little bit before past. Got 40 people with us so far, which is great. So Amy, you might need to unmute me on the screen. Is anyone else having problems hearing us? I can hear. Okay. Yeah. So just on our with StreamYard, sometimes it puts us on mute as default. So you might just need to unmute us. Yeah. So good point. Yes, I'll just put in here.
Success.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes StreamYard auto mutes the presenters, which isn't always that helpful. Okay, great. We are up at 55 people, which is awesome. We'll get going in maybe just one more minute. Welcome everyone who's just joining us. As we're getting going, I was just saying we won't be able to see or hear you on the stream. But if you have any questions or comments or anything, just pop it in the chat and we'll use the chat to moderate during the session. A couple of things in terms of as we're getting going, I've just posted on the screen a bit.ly link. If you could type that into your browser, any browser, so that's bit.ly/44V capital X, capital Y, capital PI. At some point in the next couple of minutes, it should bring up a Google Doc, which we'll be referring to during the session, which will have all the prompts and some goodies in there as well, which we'll walk through as we go. If everyone could also open up their AI tool of choice, so whether that's ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, then we'll be good to get going. Okay, great. I think we're just past 1:30, up at 75 people. So I'll just mention that again. So first of all, welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us on, if you're in London, quite a cold, grey day. It's nearly Christmas, so appreciate everyone taking the time out of their super busy schedules to join us. We've got hopefully a very interesting, fun-packed, accelerator-style immersive training session today with myself and Andy. Just a couple of things before we get going, so everyone is like nicely set up and the training runs smoothly, because we've got 45 minutes and the time will fly by with the amount we're going to try get through. On the screen, you'll see a link, a bit.ly link. You won't be able to copy it from the screen, but if you could just type it as it looks on the screen into your browser, it will bring up a Google document and it'll have a number of prompts in there that we're going to refer to during the session. Thank you, Sophia. Yeah, if you can copy that, so everyone's got that open and ready to go. And then the other thing we'll ask you, we'll need you to do is to just open up your AI of choice. It doesn't matter if it's a free version, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Copilot, it doesn't matter. The results may vary between them, but that's good to see. Great, cool, perfect. We're at a couple of minutes past 1:30. So I think we'll probably get going. We've got 80 people on the training, which is great. Just to reiterate a couple of things, we won't be able to see or hear you. So if you've got any comments or questions, just put it in the comments. I'll be keeping an eye on it from a moderation perspective. If you can copy that bit.ly link into your browser and get the Google Doc open, that would be fantastic. And then have your AI of choice open, ready to go, and we'll be referring to that throughout the session. So firstly, welcome everyone. Super excited to have 82 people on the training now. We've got a really fun-packed session and hopefully really interesting next 45 minutes. It's going to be quite pacey, so we're going to move through it at pace, but we'll give everyone enough time to work through some of the practical elements that we've got in store for you today. So just before we get going, I know there's a number of people on the call who know Accelerator pretty well, clients who have worked with us for a long time in the past, but maybe just want to do a quick introduction. So this has been facilitated by myself and Andy, who will do a proper introduction to ourselves in a second. But we're Accelerator Solutions. We're a learning and development business. We have a really strong belief that people are the greatest asset, and you have to empower them through skills and experiences. And really, this today was born out of the fact that the world is changing so fast. And I feel that as the CEO of Accelerator, it's never been moving as quickly as it is today. And we want to make sure that people are empowered to go on that journey with technology, but it really is about the people and the skills and the tools. And AI is just the next digital tool that is available to help people be more efficient and fantastic at their jobs without using that human connection. So just a quick on the comments, very quickly, we just want to understand a little bit about where you are today in terms of your understanding of AI. So just by a quick, show of hands or in the chat, how many of you are using AI daily? And what tool are you using, or is there any tools that you like using? So maybe just give you a couple of minutes, just pop in the chat. I'm hoping to see some varied use, both personally and professionally. So we've got a couple on ChatGPT, occasionally Perplexity and Copilot. Oh, nice. That's a nice combination. Daily Copilot. Thought we might have quite a few Copilot users just given the context of the session. Yep, daily, most dailies, ChatGPT, daily, GPT, Complexity, Comet. Wow, MR, we've got a few going there, daily ChatGPT, which is great. I mean, this is kind of what we see when we talk to clients about this. Once a week professionally, Claude and Copilot, OpenAI. So when we talk to our clients, we do get this varied set of tools. And for today, it doesn't matter. And actually what we'll talk through is that in reality, the tools themselves don't matter at the point of foundations, which we're going to be talking through today. It gets a bit more exciting when you start to layer them across on the foundational tools. But we see most people using ChatGPT. It's kind of the Google, the workhorse. I think over 60% of people using AI are using ChatGPT in some form, closely followed by Claude and Perplexity and Copilot, given they've got a bit of a monopoly on the Microsoft state. So just before we dive into it, just a very brief introduction to myself and Andy. So I'm Toby, I'm the CEO at Accelerator Solutions. Spent 20 years as a management consultant and building software with scale-ups. I've got 20 years of digital transformation and large-scale transformation experience across a number of different types of institutions, and been with Accelerator for the last year and a half. I'm really passionate about solving complex problems, but from a human perspective. So I'm really excited about the training today, bringing together kind of my technology background, my change background, and the human side of things. And Andy, I'll let you do a quick introduction.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andy. I've been in product management specifically over the last 17 odd years, mainly in smaller tech startups, but also in bigger corporates, some banking experience, and then in consultancies as well. A big focus for me has always been on the combination of people and process and product working together. And so this last year, I've really focused on how AI can augment human beings to be better at what they do best, and really streamline operations and get people better results. I was introduced to Toby a few months ago now by someone who I worked with in my previous role, and this was something that I think we had both spotted a need for. So it's been very exciting to sort of really get this off the ground and to be running this together.
Great. So this is, we pulled this statement from a bit of research, but this is the statement that we get all the time from the people we're speaking to, that every organization knows they need to adopt AI. They might feel behind, they might be experimenting, but they don't really know the output or the outcome they're trying to get to. They just know they need to be doing something. And there is genuinely more hype around AI. I'm sure everyone's LinkedIn feeds, YouTube feeds, daily conversations have something to do with AI in lots of different contexts. And that hype is making companies just think that sometimes magically this is going to get solved. And based on our conversations and doing this with our own businesses, we know that that's not true. And what we'll try to get to today through the next half an hour or so is giving everyone an understanding of how they can start to use AI in a way that is going to be meaningful for them as an individual, for their teams, and also for their organization. And the way we think about this is not about a big revolution. You're not going to flick a switch tomorrow. AI adoption is not a transformation program. It's an evolution of change. And when Andy and I were talking about this over the last number of months, where the need was, we felt like there was this real sweet spot in between very large scale consultancies selling agentic AI solutions to blue chip clients and being continuously reliant on their development teams to do something, and the 22-year-old sat in their bedroom building agentic workflows, making you feel incredibly behind, but not knowing the context of how a business actually runs. So this training came together to help people and organizations and teams really cut through the noise and really focuses on solving real problems. And that's a big part of what we'll talk about today. And then really this is about empowering people. If you feel comfortable doing something, if you practice it enough times, you will feel empowered, and then that empowerment will spread throughout the teams and throughout the organizations. And today is to try and give you that initial kind of push to try these things and to show you that it's not actually that scary. So what you'll get out of the next 45 minutes, so we'll give you a very brief foundations of what AI is and isn't, and that will be, maybe the next 5 minutes, and then we'll dive straight into unlocking AI. And what we're going to go quite deep in today's prompting. And prompting is just a fancy way of saying this is how you talk to AI, and it is quality in and quality out. And we'll talk you through how you can think about approaching that. We'll then talk a little bit about problem identification. So where do you start? How do you solve these problems? How do you find the right thing to do? How do you balance risk and reward? And within an organization, that can be extremely difficult. And then we'll talk a little bit about the pitfalls that we see and then some practical strategies to avoid them. So first thing to say is AI is not magic. Under the hood, it is just lots and lots of computers doing things at a huge amount of speed. They've got billions of data points and examples of human language code and images, and they're just really, really great at pattern recognition. What we see is we ask them a very complex question and we get a response within a number of seconds. To us, that feels like magic. But the reality is that it's not. There are real strengths that AI has, but really, really limitations. And it's really important to understand that AI is not a silver bullet. It's not magic. It's about the application in the right context. And it can be a hugely powerful tool. It can be transformational, but you need to understand what it's good at and what it's bad at. It's fantastic at drafting and editing and analyzing large data sets. It's great for brainstorming and providing idea generation, particularly if you're stuck or providing additional ideas. It's great at translation between languages and formats. It does a lot of the heavy lifting. It's good at broad context questions. These are large language models. They're not specific language models. So they have a huge amount of context. They're great at pattern spotting on complex data and great at repetitive tasks, but they're not great at real-time or proprietary company information, although they will make you believe, because they speak so confidently, that they do. They don't have deep expertise and they're not specialized in a specific domain. And they don't really understand context or nuance, particularly around human judgment and creativity and relationships. Although they'll speak back to you like you would expect a human would speak back to you, that is just through pattern recognition over a period of time. They're really bad at maths. If anyone has seen how many R's are in carrot one, it's really quite incredible that we think these are sentient beings, but they can't do very, very simple maths. And they don't know what they don't know. So they do hallucinate. And hallucination is where AI makes stuff up. So there have been some pretty prevalent examples over the past couple of weeks where companies have used AI in a way and got really bad outcomes. There's a couple on the screen here where there was the one that the top left is around Microsoft used this, and they recommended that people go to a soup kitchen as a tourist hotspot and told them to arrive with hungry stomachs. Like, there is a reputational impact here if you don't get them right. There is real dangers because AI will think it will give you a really strong answer, but actually it is hallucinating. It's making things up. And if you ever challenge it on that, then it will apologize and say, I just basically made that up. So I just wanted to flag that it's super powerful, but actually it's also got significant limitations. And rather than thinking about it as like this sentient being, just think about it as a new assistant. They're really enthusiastic, but they need direction. So the way I like to think about this is think about it as a human being. If you were talking to an intern or an assistant or a graduate or someone new in your team, you'd pick the right person for the right task. You would make sure that you gave them instructions in a quality way to expect the quality out. That they'll be there to amplify your expertise, but they're not there to replace it. And you'd probably give them some small tasks that were low risk to start with. And you'd consistently need to give them context and training so you could get the most out of them. And AI is no different. So you have to think about it in that way, not this super smart, sentient magic machine that is going to answer all your questions. And the reality is that there is a huge amount of overwhelm at the moment. This shows just some of the tools from an AI perspective, and this is already out of date. And the reality is you're not going to master all of them. You might just only play with a fraction of them, but it's about a foundational mindset and principles to apply AI to tasks and problems. So that's where you've got to start, because it is very easy to get overwhelmed. And that's what a number of our clients say to us is, where do we even start? What tool do we start with? Now, for today, we think as having 4 foundational tools, and Copilot probably should be on this slide too. So these are what is referred to as large language models. Got ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and Gemini. And this is what we're going to be basically working in today. These are the foundational tools that if you are going to be using AI for the first time, or you're thinking about how to embed it within your business or your workflow or tasks, start with one of these. It doesn't really matter at this point which one it is. They all do about the same thing. And it might be that one is better than another at some other things, and one is better at others. Perplexity is great for deep research, but they're all kind of catching up with each other over a period of time. A lot of it is about personal preference. And then some other honorable mentions, but we don't want you to get lost in this or go away, start Googling what these things are. The reason we wanted to show this is once you've got the foundations in place, the unlock to the next levels is actually very quick and significant. So there's some in here that Gamma you might have heard of, produces PowerPoint decks. Whisper is a dictation tool. Nana Banana creates images. NAN is a workflow tool. There are thousands of these, but these are some of the ones that we like, and we're talking to clients about how you embed these once you've got the foundations correct. But AI, people still say to us, AI is scary. I'm not technical. How can I, I'm not in a technical role. I'm not technical. I'm not an engineer. How do I even start? And the good news is, and you might notice that is me and Andy in an AI generated image solving the world as superheroes. We're here to help, but also the even better news is that AI is not a technical skill. It's a communication skill, which means that you can learn it and you can practice it on a continuous basis. So just as a quick show of hands in the chat, how many people have heard of prompt engineering or understand or have an idea of what prompt engineering is? Has anyone heard of prompt engineering or prompting, might be more commonly known as? Not heard a little, yes, a little bit, no idea. Yeah, okay, so a bit of a mixed bag, which is interesting, because I think people, when they hear the term, I know when I first heard prompt engineering, I was like, well, I'm not an engineer, how do I do this? And in reality, all this means is it's a consultant probably came up with this phrase to make themselves sound smarter. But this is just about the art of communicating clearly, and it's about being clear on what you need. It's about giving them the right background. It's about explaining how you want them to help and setting expectations. And then importantly, working through it together. This is not a one and done. This is a continuous improvement. And think back to that analogy of an assistant that you'd newly hired. You would have to continually do these things. And all of us on this training speak to people every day, whether that's on WhatsApp or on the phone or on Teams meetings. So just think about the natural language that you use when you're speaking to your colleagues. Okay, so enough of the speaking aspect. We're now going to go into our first practical exercise. So before I hand over to Andy, if everyone hasn't, the bit.ly link on the screen, if you could open that up and you'll see a Google document, and we're going to go through the first prompt. So Andy, over to you.
Perfect. So, of course, the major thing here is we now want to make it practical. I'm sure all of you have used AI tools for something at this stage, but if you can just open up your preferred tool of choice, ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, whatever that may be. I'm looking at Claude at the moment, which is one of the more popular ones. And over here, all I'm going to do is take that first prompt that you've got from the document, which just says, write a blog post about how AI is transforming industry. And obviously, what I want you to do is just enter an industry, either your own, or if you're interested in something else, enter that. So let's say the construction industry, for instance, and then hit enter. And I'll give that a few seconds just to see, so that everyone's got the results. And your AI tool should start producing something for you.
So just as your tool of choice is doing something and something a bit harder than others, we'd just like you to think about, like, what do the results look like, and just comment in the chat. Does it look good? Does it look bad? Is the quality? Would you be happy to post that as a article for your for a blog for your company? Would you be happy to put it out in a personal capacity? What are people seeing as they're doing that? Because these types of prompts we've shown here are the kind that most people use every single day. So we've got some wows. Impressed? No. Wow.
And you can see here, I mean, it will also depend on a few different factors. The tool that you're using will give different results. And in fact, in the one that I'm using, Claude, I'm using a model called Opus 4.5, and it has gone off, and actually you can see that it's doing a pile of research on its own about the industry. That's not
Yeah.
necessarily typical of all the results that you'll see.
Yeah, and there's some interesting comments in here. So it's pretty good, impersonal and clearly AI generated. Yeah, it's a great observation. Impressive. Would take me hours to write this. It's clearly AI written. So interestingly, so one thing from a human perspective, we look at this and there's an interesting comment from Simon where you go, that would have taken me hours, so it must be good, because you're applying your human context to a machine with lots of compute power doing something very, very quickly. Now, what you'll see is this might be an okay starting point. It will look pretty impressive, but when you get into the weeds, and obviously we don't have time to read through these, but I'd urge everyone to afterwards, is think about, oh, that isn't quite right. That doesn't make sense. It's hallucinated over there. It doesn't quite understand the industry. So the reason why we wanted to do this is we wanted to give a baseline of, a prompt like that is probably how most people use their AI tools. The first thing we're going to look at from an unlock perspective is unlock one, which is around the CRISP framework, which is a prompting framework that will give you much, 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 almost exponentially better results. So Andy, do you want to walk through the CRISP framework?
Definitely. And as you mentioned, you'll see that the results that you would have got received might be an interesting read, but they may also just sort of give you something that doesn't really sort of cover any specific ground. And so the CRISP framework is a simple acronym, easy to remember. You don't need to apply each of these things in this order. So you don't need to go context, role, instruction, steps, parameters, but it's easy to do so. And context really is the key foundation. When you use these tools, though as you use them more, they do start to remember who you are and the things that you ask about. So they will start giving you answers that are more in line with what you're looking for. But context is really a very important foundation for telling the tool what it is you're trying to achieve, why it matters, and any relevant situational information. So even if it knows who you are, it may not know exactly what your company does or what you look after in your company, or what your current focuses are, or indeed what the nature of the sort of key task is that you're trying to accomplish. Now, the role that you want to provide is these AI tools can basically, because they're trained on enormous amounts of data from all sorts of different fields, you can actually tell them, and they will, like I said, make an assumption of what you want them to act as based on the request. But if you tell them to act as a specific role, and the more specific, the better. So if you say, we're writing a blog post, so I want you to act as a content marketing expert in and your industry, and you can get as specific as you want. So with specific expertise in writing high-performing blog content for X audience, those are the kinds of things that can really start, as Toby said, just those two alone, even if you didn't do the other things, would radically improve the quality of the results, which is one of the things that we'll show you. Instruction is pretty clear. That's a high level, what exactly do you want? Steps really help you to just break down the task into stages. And often, so for something like a blog post, you may want it to first do some research, or first help me first narrow down who the audience persona might be for the blog post that I'm writing, and then help me write the blog post. So these tools can really help you to follow a systematic process to get to the desired result that you want. And then parameters are really things like format, length, tone, and constraints. And really the key bit there is, with the first prompt that you've all added, you haven't specified how long the blog post needs to be. So I think mine, it's guessed at 1,000 words, but you may have only wanted a 500-word blog post, in which case it would have to rewrite the entire thing. And what we find a lot of is that if people don't do these things up front, you might get something that's useful, but then you end up spending 30 minutes, 40 minutes just trying to refine the output rather than refining what's going in, which would give you the output that you wanted or much closer to it first time round. So should we take a look?
And just on that, just on the parameters piece and the steps, think about it from a blog perspective, but for anything, you could say, I want this in a 500 words, and I want a LinkedIn post, and I want short form, and I want, and it'll do the heavy lifting for you. That's when you start seeing a real power. So practical exercise number 2. So back in the Google sheet, you'll see practical exercise number 2, which is a very, very long, crisp prompt, which we developed for this use case. You'll see in there that there are a number of brackets for your industry. So just for this exercise in terms of time, just replace the industry brackets with whatever you used for the first blog, and then run that through the same tool that you used previously.
I'm going to use a slightly quicker model, so it just goes a little bit faster here. But I think someone shared a tip on how to control, how to multi-paste. Tip: if you copy and paste the prompt into MS Word and hit Control H, you can replace all industry with your industry. So that's a nice little hack. I'm just going to do this here. So as you can see, I've got context.
So Stanley, while you're doing that, for those people who joined late, sorry, there's a bit.ly link that I've just put on screen that I'll open a Google Doc. In the Google Doc, there is a prompt number 2. Sorry, Andy, back to you.
Yeah, exactly. And so context, as you can see here, I've literally got each of the titles. There's context. You're writing a blog post for business leaders. I've changed that to construction industry. You can see here how it now has gone through each of these things and provided a huge amount of detail. So instruction, still writing a blog post, but it then emphasizes what the goal is. So now the blog post is really going to be geared at helping readers understand what's genuinely changing, where AI creates real value, what the risks are, and what they should prioritize. Now the steps, this now gives it a clear format, right? I want the blog post to open with a concrete example or scenario from the construction industry, etc. And I'll let you read through all of those. And then, like I said, with parameters, specifying how long you want it to be, what you want the tone to be, who the audience is, what the structure needs to be, using subheadings for scannability, using UK English, short sentences because maybe people are reading this on a mobile device, use you language to make it personal. Don't use Java. So this is another really big one. A lot of the time, these tools, if you don't tell them what you don't like, they might give you a whole pile of stuff that really doesn't sound like you, right? And are words that you would never ordinarily use. And we hear frequently that people use these tools and then they say, well, it gave me something, but then I basically spent more time rewriting it the way that I like to write than I would have if I just started from scratch myself. This is a really big one that you can get around there. And so I'll just hit enter. No.
So as Andy's is running there, hopefully people have been doing that in the background as well. And this might take a little bit longer. For those of you who have run it, so yeah, Keith, far better results second time around. What are people seeing the difference being? Are people seeing a difference? Be interested to get people's observations. Anybody else seeing a marked difference? When Andy and I were testing this over the last couple of days and you actually sit down and read them side by side, the difference is incredible in terms of the context and the specificity.
Yeah, and you can see here, so it's opened with a really specific story, an attention-grabbing hook. It's not just a general interest, what is AI kind of doing in construction? And it's clearly angling towards some kind of goal for a specific target audience. And with a lot of these things, that's key, right? You're not just, whether it's producing an email, producing a newsletter, or a company memo, or whatever the case might be, each of those things has a different audience and a different objective, and you really need to be specific.
But Andy, we just gave everyone a prompt there. You're an expert in this. we are all super busy people. How the heck do you expect people to actually be bothered to do that? And I'm being a bit facetious, but that is one of the questions we get asked all the time. So there is a unlock number 2, which I think is probably one of the biggest unlocks, is did you know that the AI can write prompts for writing prompts? So this is called a meta prompt. So you don't have to sit down and write that. We've given you a framework. We'll give you much more afterwards in terms of some specific examples that you can use straight away for very generic tasks, which is why we picked blog writing. But think about any task that you do on a recurring basis. We've given you a framework. AI can then help you build a prompt for that specific task. So rather than spending hours writing that task, AI will do it for you in a number of seconds. This to me is one of the things that can save and will save you hours and hours and hours, particularly for repetitive tasks. So we're going to go into practical exercise number 3 now, which is about meta prompting. So again, in the Google document, there is a prompt 3, which is a meta prompt.
Write a prompt, yeah.
Yeah. So if you copy that into the into your tool of choice, it will, and every time it does it slightly differently. But I'll hand over to Andy in a second. But this should now start to build out a specific prompt for you that then you can copy and paste and start to use. It may ask you some questions. It may ask for a bit more context, or it might ask for some specifics. So go with it if it asks you that. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do that all throughout the call. We've only got kind of 10, 15 minutes left. But if you copy and paste that into the tool and then just see what it comes out with.
I think the key message here is just try something here. Do so fairly rapidly. It doesn't need to be perfect. The idea of all of this is that we're giving you some things that you can then take away and then use beyond this to really kind of get much better results on the key things that you're going to be doing. So say, for instance, I needed to write a company newsletter to all employees. My industry is, insurance rectification is one of the recommendations. So audience, company all hands, tone, friendly, conversational.
So as Andy's doing that, you can see these take a little bit of the framework is there, and then for each individual task, you can just fill in these blank sections or the input sections, and it will then give you a prompt for that specific task. So that's whether that's writing a email that's a generic client information request for some FAQs, whether it's writing a blog, whether it's a company-wide memo that needs to go out. There's lots of different use cases, and that will be individual to the person and the task. So we get you to think about that and then start to use these meta prompts, because I don't know if there's any comments. Having used that when I first started to use these, it was such a big unlock from a productivity perspective. It changed how I kind of thought about certain tasks that I did every single day. So you can see there on Andy's screen, it's given him a prompt that he can now then copy and utilize many, many times, which leads into unlock number 3, which is prompts are becoming business assets. Many businesses at the moment who have built their infrastructure or product on top of large language models, all they are really, really, really good verbose prompts. But every team and organization should start to think in this way. So any high frequency task should have a standardized prompt. That can be meeting preparation, it can be follow-ups, it can be data analysis and presentation creation, it can be pitch decks, it can be sales, depending on the industry that you're in. And then the next step is to start to organize them and share them. That can be in a Google Sheet, it can be in an Excel, it can be a Notion. But the main thing is that these are identified by use case and function. You use them as a team, start small, start iterating, start sharing them. And then you go from being an individual to a team, and then the organization starts to become more and more enabled through utilizing AI. Really important. Very few organizations do this.
I was just going to add, I've seen a couple of comments that people have said, well, this is much better, but I would still, I'd still change it. That's absolutely what you do, right? You're going to create these prompts and then share them and then iterate on the prompts themselves. But just the act of actually writing it out in this structured way gives you something to work with, rather than just trying to work with the results and trying to rewrite things once they're already done.
Yep. So on to AI unlock number 4. This is a really key one. Again, very few people do it. AI actually doesn't know a lot about you. It will pretend it does. It might have some context from previous chats, but context is currency when it comes to AI. Now, we've shown you in the first situation, you can provide lots and lots of context in a repeatable way through prompts. But what we're going to spend the next just couple of minutes going through is custom instructions and knowledge sources. So there are 2 other ways you can provide context throughout every piece of information or every time you use AI. So if you're in ChatGPT, or this is in Claude, and the same will be for Copilot, if you look at account settings and go to personalization, you have this screen that pops up here, and you can provide custom instructions. So you can give them your role, you can give them your industry, any common tasks you perform, how you like to be spoken to, your target audience, and any specific constraints. Now, the AI then will store that and apply it to every single interaction you have with it. So if you don't like to use acronyms, if you prefer bullet points, if you want it succinct, if you want it written in a certain language or way, or not use Zs for English speakers in personalization, those are the things you can put in here at quite a granular level that's applied across every single time you use the AI. This will take you 5 or 6 minutes, and we'll send you some instructions after the call about how to do it. But again, this is one of the things that will 10x the output of the AI. Don't use dashes. Yeah, that's a great one. Actually, don't use the M dash. That's a clear giveaway for using AI. They can all be built within here. The next is about data sources. So in Claude and ChatGPT, only for the paid versions, so not the free versions, you can connect data sources. Same with Copilot, you can connect your OneDrive, you can give it brand guidelines, you can give it reference documents to read, you can give it previous work, you can speak into it and give it company information. And all that context helps provide a much more robust answer. So those 2 things together in terms of the personalization on yourself and the personalization and context from the company give you a super powerful outcome. If you only do those 2 things after this call over a period of time, and we'll give you some tools to be able to do it as quickly as possible, it will unlock the AI, the quality of your AI output across a number of different tasks. Now, what do we see when we're talking to organizations? Because this is all great, they get super excited, it seems quite easy, but the key thing is most organizations fail because they don't have a clear problem to solve. We picked an example of a blog because it's a nice, simple one to go through in a training session, but they don't really have a clear problem. What is the outcome they're trying to achieve? And they don't have any way of measuring it. 97% of all AI projects are still in experimentation mode, and they never get past proof of value because there was no clear way of measuring the value it provided and the outcome. They're all very individually focused. So everyone is using it now, but how many of us are using it as a team? How many of us are using it as an organization? How many have got top-down strategies to say, this is how we're going to use it, and this is what it means for us? And they don't embed it in daily tasks. Remember, this is a communication skill that can be practiced. The more you practice, the better at it you get. If you do it one-off, different every time, you're not going to get any better. And honestly, most people use it like Google. You saw at the start, a one-line prompt gives you lots of information. Most of us are happy. And we reinvent the wheel every single time. So there's no scalability. And that's where the prompting, saving the prompts as assets is really, really important. Now, when we work with clients, we start with the problem. So what is the outcomes they're trying to achieve? What are the constraints that are stopping them doing it today? And try and quantify that pain. If we don't do this, what is going to happen? And then prioritizing those opportunities. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming, both with the tools and the things you could do. So starting small, starting specific, and starting simple is really important. And then designing solutions that can be tested and iterated and scaled really, really quickly. We wanted to flag this because not to overwhelm people, but once you get that foundation, the advancement of the advanced features is actually incredibly powerful. So you might have heard of custom GPTs. We'll share a little guide about how you can create a custom GPT, either personally or for your business. Again, this is just a hyper-contextual AI within ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot that is for a specific task. Projects and skills within ChatGPT and Claude are a massive, massive unlock. They're quite an advanced feature that we start to talk to clients about once they've got their foundations in place. But there are a set of conversations or projects dedicated to a specific task. And the number of skills is almost exponential. So you can build skills within these tools. So it knows, for example, after I've had a meeting with a client and it's been recorded, to turn that transcript into a bespoke proposal for them. What would have taken maybe 10 hours of work has been turned into less than 5 minutes of work. And then it gets quite interesting in terms of agents and tools. So building these things together in a congruent workflow using something like NAN or Zapier really then starts to provide efficiency. Now, I don't want to overwhelm people with these words because you probably see them a lot already. And it's just to double underline that the foundations are really important, the communication and the prompting, the context is king. And then once you've got those in place and everyone feels empowered and comfortable, you can then quickly start to layer these things in place to provide ridiculous amounts of value to yourself, to your teams and your business. So to wrap up, hopefully that was helpful and useful. So just some key takeaways from our side. Start with the foundational tools. And AI is a communication skill. So the better you get at prompting, the better outputs you'll get. Try that meta prompt on a couple of tasks and see how it works, and then start to save them down. And then if you only take the next task after this, just provide a bit of context to the tool and see how that changes the output of the tools. Really important to start with the problem, whether that's a problem that you have as a task, as a small team, get together, have a conversation about it, and then define the outcome and then overlay the AI. Don't start with the tool, start with the problem. And then you can start to explore some advanced features. And you can see Andy and I there in our AI avatars, saving the world, of cutting through the hype of all AI. Hopefully that was really helpful for you. In terms of next steps, if anyone found this interesting, wants to talk more about it, drop us an email to info@Accelerator or to myself or Andy individually. We'd also like to offer out, we've got 10 slots available in January for a free 45-minute consultation in terms of where you could be using AI within your business. So if that sounds interesting, it's completely free. Andy and I will sit with you and go through kind of our problem analysis and identify areas of quick wins. Just so feel free to reach out to us and we'll maybe share a Calendly link so you can block out some time. After this call, we'll send out a number of artifacts, including some prompts, some meta prompts, some guides are creating GPTs and some other cool stuff in a package that will go out in the next couple of days. The webinar will be recorded, so you can feel free to share it with your colleagues, and we'll be looking to run another one probably in January time. But again, just a massive thank you to everyone for joining. I think we had 102 people at its peak, and everyone took that time out to join the session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Hopefully have a good rest of your afternoon and a lovely Christmas if we don't speak to you before.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.